Hey everyone, we get the question all the time in terms of what's my retirement number? How much do I need to retire? And while that's a really critical question, a lot of times we don't see so much attention put to what are those important aspects beyond how much I need to make sure I'm set up for retirement that's successful and comfortable and aligns with what your goals are. So, with that in mind, we like to call these a retirement icebergs to watch for, which are common pitfalls that many people are not expecting or realizing, but are going to actually be what dictates whether you have a retirement you were planning or some unexpected events that result in you having to pivot down the road in a negative way. And so I'm going to go over the three retirement icebergs that we see most often that we think are very critical to look into and evaluate prior to retirement, in addition to what's my retirement number. So the first retirement iceberg that we see come up all the time is underestimating your retirement spending. We commonly hear folks say, hey, once I'm retired, my income's going to be lower. I'm not going to need as many expenses. My taxes might be less. I've been not putting all this money in my 401k. That's not going to continue. And so most people assume that once they retire, they're going to be spending less. The reality is, we typically see that in retirement, you're going to be spending the same, if not more, than when you're working. You got a lot more time on your hands to be doing hobbies, travel, work on that bucket list. And so time and time again, as it should be, we tend to see those go-go busy retirement years where the spending ticks up as well. This isn't an issue, by the way. This is a good thing. It's just something that we want to have our eyes open to. And this could easily be accomplished by doing a spending plan worksheet ahead of retirement. And what this entails is looking at your last 6 months of bank statements. What have I been spending money on? As well as what do I see my spending being in the future? We have a great one-pager I'm happy to pass along that essentially goes over those main food groups, where you could lay out, here's what my desired spending is on top of what my actual spending has been. And that way we could get crystal clear on what kind of goals and game plan we need to support that lifestyle that you're looking for in retirement. I wouldn't think of this as a budget, right? It's more of an empowering thing to say, hey, what do I want to be doing out there? What do I want my life to be? And whether it's for retirement or in your working years, this is a great exercise to do. As we know in the world of Amazon, the spending happens very quick. And a lot of times it's so easy to purchase things, we're not being intentional about it. And a lot of times we're spending money on things that don't give us utility. And so this is a great way to get your arms around that, but especially approaching retirement. The way I think of it, Fortune 100 companies budget, right? Everyone should be doing this, no matter what stage of life that you're in or what your balance sheet is. The second retirement iceberg that we see is lacking tax diversification. We hear the term all the time, and everybody knows investment diversification. Don't have all your money in Microsoft or Boeing or Amazon stock, right? Tax diversification is a bit different. What that entails is making sure we have the right combination of the tax character on our different investment in various accounts, where we're not going to be put in a tough tax spot down the road. As I noted previously, we see all the time where in addition to people think their spending might be less, you may think that your taxes are going to be less in retirement as well. And that absolutely is commonly the case. However, as you have appreciated stock, you take draws from 401ks and retirement accounts, those are all taxable events. Commonly as well, as we look at health insurance, which I'm going to hit on in a moment, your taxes not only are impacted by your income that you're showing, that impacts your health insurance premiums too. When I say tax diversification, what I mean is that in addition to tax deferred retirement accounts, 401ks, IRAs, in addition to non-retirement brokerage accounts where you may hold appreciated stock, it's also good to start building up your Roth IRAs and health savings accounts. These are really flexible accounts where the funds in there are tax-free if accessed the right way and the right manner, and a great component to add to the other account types to give you a lot of flexibility in retirement. And what that means is if you need to purchase that new vehicle, you want to do that around the world trip, If you want to help a family member, an adult child with a down payment on a home, we have kind of a game plan on different buckets of funds from a tax perspective that you can access to do just that. The third iceberg is having a plan for retirement medical expenses. I foreshadowed that a bit on the last slide. But basically, the way that it works is the number one thing we see people worried about as they're entering their retirement years, especially if they're trying to retire early in their 50s or early 60s, is I am going to get hammered by health insurance expenses. I'm not Medicare age yet. What do I do? I'm not on my company's health insurance. And so having a plan for early retirement medical is a big deal. Fortunately, there's a lot that we can do here. When you retire from your employer, you're on COBRA for 18 months. COBRA is a decent deal, right? You stay on your employer's health insurance. However, you're paying the full ticket by yourself. You may get the negotiated benefited rates from a Microsoft or an Amazon or Boeing, but you're paying out of pocket. Your company's not pitching in. Where it gets tricky is after that 18-month period where you have to get private insurance. And the way you do that is through the Affordable Care Act, ACA, the private state health insurance marketplaces, Washington Health Plan Finder. And essentially, when you go on there, you could get insurance through the big names, Regents, Kaiser, of that sort. The way it works is it could be very, very expensive, but the cost of your health insurance is based on your tax return income. And so essentially, as you have lower income with the ACA program, the Affordable Care Act, you get a subsidy. As your income goes up, the subsidy goes down. And so this ties back into the tax diversification when you're taking accounts from a non-retirement account where there's no realized gains, from a Roth account, that doesn't show as tax return income, right? And so there's a difference between keeping your income down for health insurance and tax-related purposes versus what your spending is in your retirement living income. And so having a game plan on how to mesh all these factors is really the sweet spot and gets a lot of folks over the hump in terms of that early retirement health insurance and getting comfortable with taking the leap. So when we bring all these items together, the good news is that these are icebergs that you have control. We have a navigation system to know when and if they're coming. And it's a lot different than what's the inflation going to be next month, the inflation rates. What's the government going to do with tax rates? What's the market going to do? Are we going through a recession? Those are volatility aspects that are going to vary over time, and there's a lot of unknown to it. With these icebergs that I'm referencing, we have a lot of control on where those land. So I hope that's helpful in terms of as you're looking at an early retirement or work optionality, how to navigate some of those common pitfalls. Feel free to shoot me a message. I'm happy to chat through this, give you some feedback from what we've seen. But again, the good news is with proper navigation, these are all areas that can be avoided and managed appropriately. Thanks so much for tuning in.